Those who get drenched in the sun, those who can't stop wearing 10 layers of clothing in cold weather, those who have coughing fits in dry places, and those who show 1,000 different allergies to flowers and insects. I'm sure that you are experiencing various problems related to climate and environment, like the examples I've just mentioned. So what is the reason why almost all people in the world have been suffering from these problems for ages? If we are a growth of the group of living beings in this world, why don't we have a physical body that can withstand these external factors quite well, like them? Even leaving that aside, how is it that man is the most intelligent creature on this planet, and at the same time one of the most helpless and vulnerable creatures in nature? Isn't our way of life, our development, our physical characteristics, as if we don't belong to this world? Yet, some recent studies claim that we really don't belong here. Why is man so fragile towards nature? For centuries, humans have been searching for answers about their existence and place in the universe. Today, mainstream science claims that humans, like all other living things, are a species that emerged from millions of years of evolution. But for the human species, there are huge gaps in this theory. For example, the dramatic speed of the transition from Homo erectus, our alleged ancestors, to Homo sapiens, today's modern humans, and the even more dramatic difference in intelligence. Various researchers try to explain this with their own interpretations. Some argue that when humans learned to cook meat, the digestive process became shorter and the brain developed more. Others argue that there is such a difference between the two races because of an occasional collective leap of consciousness, and similar theories continue to be put forward. This is still an unsolved mystery. However, if we consider things with logic and science, a few serious questions arise. When we examine the physical characteristics of today's modern human beings, we immediately notice some serious design flaws. For example, our spine is not designed to properly support the upright posture of our body. For this reason, one of the biggest problems of almost all humanity is back pain and related diseases. Another example is our extreme sensitivity to the climatic conditions of our planet. Almost none of us can withstand the heat of the sun or the cold of winter without protective clothing. And you don't even have to be in an African desert or at the North Pole. Even in the middle climatic zone, you would die if you spent a night naked on the street in winter. There are some claims that our bodies were once covered with hair and feathers and then shed. But this is not an explanation that made sense to me from the beginning, because you don't see this adaptation in other creatures. Their feathers have a structure that protects them from both cold and heat. Again, interestingly, in cold climates, hair growth is more common in nature, whereas in humans it is the opposite. Hair growth is almost non-existent in northern people. The immune system of human beings is clearly one of the weakest in nature. When you look at our history, you see that from the moment humans became sedentary and began to live in close proximity to animals, they have been plagued by disease. Thousands of diseases and as many allergies are two great scourges that our body has not been able to develop an absolute protection for tens of thousands of years. However, when you examine the creatures in nature, you realize that these problems are very rare even in the simplest creatures. In fact, some of the so-called simple creatures, such as jellyfish, show no signs of disease or aging, and if the conditions are right, are theoretically immortal. But human beings have to constantly support their immune system against both climatic and natural conditions. Otherwise, they get sick instantly and enter into processes that lead to death. The last and perhaps the most important outlier is our reproductive system. If you pay attention, you will not easily find another species in nature that wears out the mother as much as humans do in the pre- and postnatal period. The incorrect design of the spine and the narrow rib structure manifests itself here in a very serious way and causes pregnant women to suffer from severe back pain. And in the periods approaching delivery, the narrow rib cage is compressed by the pressure of the baby on the organs and causes breathing problems. After birth, the human baby is born, one of the most unprotected babies on Earth. I'm sure you have all seen images of animals giving birth in documentaries. Just a few hours after birth, these newborn creatures instantly learn how to walk, how to feed, and how to survive thanks to their many instincts. Even in breeds such as cats and dogs, where the rate of development is relatively slow, within 1 to 2 months at most, the puppy is able to perform all kinds of functions very successfully. Now consider the human baby. If any of our viewers are parents, they understand. It is almost as if the human infant exists as an antithesis to the whole chain of life activities such as natural selection and adaptation. And even after many years, it cannot protect itself, feed itself, find its way, speak, or communicate properly. The human baby is probably the most helpless creature in nature and the most dependent on its parents. Apart from the few basic examples I have just given, you can find dozens more. For example, we are physically weaker than other living beings, we have almost no night vision, we have much less hearing, we need to be fed continuously in order to survive. Considering all this, some scientists and researchers have inevitably asked the following question. How could a creature that is so weak compared to other species on Earth have progressed in such a short period of time from barely lighting a fire and feeding in a cave to establishing colonies in space? This is where we start to get into the more mysterious parts of the story. The theory of migration from another planet. This interesting theory is an idea that is becoming more popular as more Earth-like habitable planets are found. According to this theory, scientists who study the design flaws of the human body think that human beings may have evolved on a planet with slightly less gravity than on Earth, where the climate is stable rather than variable, and where the group of predators on the planet is small or much smaller in number than on Earth. And for whatever reason, they came from that planet and later came to live on Earth. At first it may sound like science fiction, but when you look at the pros and cons of these theories, you realize that they have almost the same reality as the theory of human evolution on Earth. We have even found planets like the one I just mentioned. Of course, the planets with this climate are generally gravitational mass planets. These planets always have one side facing their sun, so one side of the planet is hot and the other, dark side, is quite cold. But the area in between is almost a perfect habitat. It is neither hot nor cold. So people can exist in the natural conditions of creation without dying. Neither full light nor full darkness, in such a way that the human eye can see its surroundings without having to rely on light protective goggles or artificial light sources when it gets dark. In a permanently mild and fertile climate, creatures in general do not need to become big predators or big herbivores. This growth and ferocity is usually an evolutionary adaptation that animals develop to adapt to harsh climatic conditions, and without it, humans would have been able to live just as our bodies are now, without developing any features such as sharp claws, super sharp eyes, or sensitive smell. So when you think about all of this, the possibility that humans came to Earth from a different planet seems to have almost the same chance of miraculously evolving and reaching the present day, given the possibilities on this planet and compared to other living things. But the next theory is the theory of ancient aliens, a theory that has become much more popular and logical than both the theory of evolution and the theory of extraterrestrial planets that I just mentioned. This theory actually answers almost all the questions. The concept of extraterrestrial creators, which entered our lives with Erich von Daniken's book Chariots of the Gods, has become one of the most popular creation theories in the world today, thanks to dozens of new archaeological discoveries in the internet, with people having access to thousands of ancient texts and epics in different languages. Especially thanks to the translation of ancient Sumerian tablets, it has been revealed how their creation epics formed the basis of today's religions, and that many of the stories told in the holy books actually belonged to the Anunnaki at that time. This includes the creation of man. According to the theory of ancient aliens, a race of advanced and human-like aliens came to our planet about 400,000 years ago in search of our gold mines and established a colony here. The theory goes like this. This advanced race, engaged in the extraction of the world's rich gold mines, eventually decides to create a sub-slave race to take the workload from them. Upon this, Enki, who is considered to be the scientist of the group, combines their own genetic structure with the primate species that existed on Earth at that time, which we can call Homo erectus today, and creates a hybrid species, the human being. This event has been transformed into the narratives in some of today's holy books, such as God created man in his own image, or by breathing into him his own spirit. The first human being created is called Adapa in Sumerian mythology. In time, this name was transformed into Adama in the Torah and later into Adam. The created human race reproduced for tens of thousands of years, doing drudgery for the Anunnaki. Eventually, after a number of climatic events across the planet and the destruction caused by the wars of the Anunnaki among themselves, the Anunnaki left the world to the humans. According to the chronology of the story, after this destruction, civilization resumed with the ancient Sumerians in 4500 BC. Many experts claim that this is the explanation for the sudden appearance of the Sumerian civilization on the stage of history in such an advanced form. The ancient alien theorem is gaining popularity every day, both because it fits with religious stories and because it explains, in evolutionary terms, how mankind could have progressed so far in such an extremely short period of time. In particular, many researchers explain mankind's irresistible obsession with the gold mine, the physical difficulties we are experiencing today as a result of rapid evolution that has not fully adapted to our world, and more importantly, the fact that we are so incompatible with both other living beings in nature and the life cycles of the planet, and that we have devastating effects such as environmental pollution, forest fires, and climate catastrophe. Because no other naturally evolved species has brought such destruction to the planet in such a short period of time. Of course, all these issues are being independently studied and researched today. Both the theory of evolution and the theory of ancient aliens or migration from other planets still contain some gaps. However, with our increasing perception and new discoveries, questions about why humanity is so incompatible with this planet and where it came from are slowly being answered. What is the most glaring disharmony you have identified in yourself or in your environment? Do you think man is part of the natural course of things, or is there something more behind the creation? See you in the next video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.